So I'm out here on this rainy day, but it's cool because I'm about to go check out my man Dapper Lou and Dapper Studios. You definitely got to tune in for this one. All right, Dapper Lou, man, I appreciate you taking time out, man, to have this conversation with me. So the purpose of this is me being an entrepreneur. I've always loved to hear the journey of other businessmen, entrepreneurs, and just what it took for them to get to the point that they're at now. I tell people, like, oftentimes, like, we look through social media, and as growing entrepreneurs, sometimes it's discouraging because we look at these things and we look at other people doing all these amazing things, and we feel like we're failing somehow. But oftentimes we don't understand, like, there's a process and there's a journey through that. So my goal is to sit down with just like-minded people and just to have that conversation on what their journey was like, because you have tons of followers. It's funny because I've been following you for years. And, quick story as we were talking off camera, you were gracious enough to accept one of our, I'm a men's accessories designer, and we started out back in 2010. And I know I came across your photo somehow through the internet, and I was like, yo, this dude is dope. I don't know, I think it was the way you wore your hat. I'm like, this dude is cool. So I'm like, you know what, I wanted to reach out to you. So I think we became friends on Facebook, and long story short, you were gracious enough because a lot of people, who are in a certain place, they don't even respond. You reach out to people, and I think that's where discouraging things come in, because you're like, you're trying to connect, you're trying to make moves, and sometimes people aren't willing to extend that hand. So, but yeah, my quick story about you were gracious enough to reach back out and say, hey, cool. You were like, I love the product. And for me, it was encouraging because it's like someone saw value in what I did. So I'd love to kind of hear about your story, where you started, the journeys, the ups and downs. We all have those things that we go through. We all get knocked down, and it takes that perseverance to kind of get back up and keep pushing. So, if you can share a little bit of what that looked like and what pushed you into the direction that you're in now.
Okay, so I started basically more so as a stylist, but it's interesting because I wasn't really getting paid for styling gigs. I was just like, okay, I want to be in fashion. What do I do? I'd be a stylist. All right. So that's how I kind of started, and then eventually someone actually recommended, they were like, oh, have you ever thought about getting into photography? And in the beginning, I definitely said that, I don't know, photography is for me, but at the same time, I did try it out. And then I guess the next transition was like menswear blog kind of like phase. And I think that put me like in front of the camera, and then I was kind of like, but I was like early 20s, so it was like fun, it was like interesting. I was still kind of like, and then people were like, oh, how much you charge for X, Y, and Z, and then even that conversation was just like, I didn't, in my head, I didn't know that I could actually like, charge for these things. And also I think too, like in that time, like, there was a lot of changes happening in the industry, so it kind of embraced, that. And then I was like mainly in front of the camera for a good amount of time, and then doing Fashion Week stuff, and then eventually, as I started traveling, I started doing like the shows abroad. I think that kind of like fed this desire to kind of travel, and then then I just kind of got bored of what I was doing, and then I just decided to like try new things. And then within that trying new things, it kind of led me to like, to what I do now.
So like in the beginning, because a lot of people when we start out, more often it comes down to having those resources. Financially, you take it, you said you were traveling a lot, you weren't quite sure, what this looks like in terms of getting paid. How did you continue to push that dream in the beginning without those resources not necessarily being there? Because I know, a lot of times when we start a business out of, a passion of love, like this is something that we want to do, but the resources aren't there, and sometimes that kind of puts people in a place where they're stagnant because they can't get to that next level because they don't have X, Y, and Z. Okay. So what were some of like I mean, did you face any of those things as you were moving forward? Like, what did that look like?
I don't know. I think my journey was a bit different because I honestly, I didn't come into this business. First of all, I didn't even know it was a business in the beginning. Right. But I didn't come into it from a monetary standpoint. For me, it was always about, this is what I like doing. I just want to make things look beautiful. Yeah. And then, you know, when, you know, money started coming in, for me, it was more like, oh, like, you know, right. I was just kind of asking questions, and you know, so for me it wasn't, you know, it was never like a really like a money thing for me. It was more like it really was a journey. Like it wasn't, you know, I think that like maybe sometimes people come into it and they expect, they had these expectations about, you know, I really didn't have any expectations because I didn't really know what, like, I was just learning as I was going. You know?
And that's what I was about to say. Like, it's funny because like people ask me, because my business has been around for almost 10 years now, and people always ask like, again, the same questions that I'm asking you, what did your journey look like? So for me, the motive wasn't, all right, I want to get paid, let me get this money, let me, you know, I want to be in magazines, I want to do this. Like, it was just out of a passion of love. And I think I tell people, like, when you're starting anything, like your motives have to be pure. Like you can't start with the idea of like instant gratification and I want to make money, because that's the quickest way for heartache. Because I mean, as you know, I'm sure like in your journey, like so many things change along the way. And it's important, like, you know, when you love something, like you kind of have to know how to navigate around those challenges. So, you know, at least for me, it's like those are some of the things that I've learned along the way. Now, at what point did you realize that, I guess you had something like, okay, like people are really like gravitating to what I'm doing?
I think, well, okay, the one point I really realized, okay, wow, like this is some stuff, is when I did a project with the brand, and they sent us to like Australia, and literally like, I mean, I was just randomly walking. I mean, I think this was like after the project ended, and I was just walking down the street, and a random guy just like knew who I was, and I was like, and this was like 2012-ish, and I was like it was just like I'm literally on the other side.
So was he like, yo, Dapper Lou?
It was like a full on. I mean, and I was like, wow, okay, like that's very. Like, you know, that's when I kind of that's when I started to understand, like, oh wow, this thing really does have a level of reach, because it's like, you know, when you're in your own circle, you don't realize, I guess from a New York perspective, you don't necessarily realize the impact that
the
New York
reach
has
on
the rest of the world, until like you go somewhere and you realize like, wow, people really are like into this stuff.
That's dope. So let me ask you, like, was there, I know, you know, was there any pushback when, and what I mean by that, when you started to talk about and, you know, share your dreams with people, the direction that you were going, was there any pushback from people like, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't do that? Because I asked that because I've had people always tell me, be careful who you share your dreams with. Because, you know, sometimes you run into people who, they don't share the same thought process. They don't have the same motivation or desires that you may have. And it's easy for them to kind of discourage or shut down what you're doing. So, I mean, did you come across any of that along your journey?
I mean, I wouldn't say like, I mean, my circle of friends when I was starting, they were really encouraging. They were like, just do it, just try it. Yeah. I mean, I guess I would say pushback that I would have probably seen, maybe like within. I mean, the thing about me is like at that time I was like super young and naive, so it's like even like you know, I don't know. I guess even like, you know, like things within the industry that probably could have been like discouraging.
You were like, whatever.
I was too like excited to like really like, you know, like process what was going on. I mean, I can't say that for me, it was always just a figuring it out. It was always kind of like this idea of, okay, like I had this thought in my head, and how can I actually like realize this? So I think my pushback, I would say, probably was just always internal conversations with myself, and just like asking questions and one pushback I would say would be brands like just like always trying like figuring out like, okay, who's actually, you know, like who can actually pay for X, Y, and Z, who's actually trying to lowball. I think that could be discouraging. Is, you know, it's like you have a product, you work, you know you're doing X, Y, and Z, but having like clients or brands always trying to, and that to me that could be annoying. Like just this constant having to sell what you're doing. You know, that's discouraging, and now I have more of a strategy of how I approach things like that. You know, like for me right now it's all about like me building my personal brand, and you know, like now I like, you know, I sell prints to clients. I like, you know, I rent out the studio space to people. So now it's like I reached a point where I'm just like, I'm just gonna make my own stuff, and I'm just gonna like work like that, as opposed to like, because when you're consulting for brands, you're basically, you know, you're just giving them a part of like your vision, you know. That's the way I see it. But when you have your own personal thing that you're working on, then it's kind of like, you know, that's your baby, that's your project, and no one really can like take that from you.
Exactly.
Know? So that's one thing I would say that that I've learned, you know, to like embrace and to do.
So once you started to work with these bigger brands, like were you intimidated at all? I mean, as you were starting out, like when you're sitting down at the table with some of these bigger brands, was there any intimidation involved? Did you feel like damn, what am I doing here? Or do I belong?
Like when I started working with bigger brand, for me, like when opportunity comes in, like I take everything with a grain of salt. I'm very like
right.
You know, I don't get excited until like papers are signed, and you know, I've just, you know, I think I've just kind of like learned to just like I don't honestly, if something comes in, I'm like, okay, this is cool. I get excited initially, you know, sign night NDAs or whatever you know, the case is. And then I get excited like when, you know, the creative brief comes in and they're like, you know, Lou, like we just want to see like how you interpret X, Y, and Z. And then that's when, you know, but I don't think I get intimidated. I think I just kind of like automatically start thinking like, how can I execute this? How can I really, you know, I just start thinking of ways to actually like execute the project. But maybe in the beginning, I probably was just like, oh wow, like exactly. Reached out to me. I'm so excited, like, you know. And then after a while, you kind of like start getting used to like a certain type of clientele.
Exactly.
And then, you know, at that point, you're just trying to like do a good job.
Because it happens, like I guess you get to this point where you look up and you're in this different space and you're like, okay, wow, like I'm really here at this table. And I think a lot of times like people don't move forward out of fear. You know, it's almost like they don't see their worth, or again, like they have other people in their ear. But it's awesome like to kind of hear that, you know, you just like you said, you took everything with a grain of salt, like, and you knew your worth, you know what I mean? You knew what your product was worth. What, if at any point did you ever get to a place where you said, or you weren't sure that this was for you? Because I know sometimes like people hit that wall, like entrepreneurs, people who own their own business, things are going well, and then sometimes you hit this wall and you're just like, okay, where do I go from here? Or is this really for me? Had you ever gotten to a point where you were in that space and kind of had to pull your way out?
Well, I mean, I always have a love-hate relationship with everyone. Like I'm the most like emo person you ever meet. I'm like 1 minute I love it, next minute I'm like I hate it. I just want to you know, throw everything out, like just start over, you know, like so I always have those internal like conversations and struggles, and I take breaks. Like I take a lot of breaks. Like I think that's for me is probably the most inspiring thing is breaks.
Now, so what's that break look like though? When you take
my break is looking like I don't want to see a camera. I don't want to see anything. I just want to go out and create. You know, like just go out and like live and create experiences and stories. And once I take those breaks, then I come back and like creatively, it's like I actually have something to say.
Yeah, it's like a reset.
Because if I just keep working, then everything just becomes like this mush of like what is going on, you know? But when I take those breaks, I really just explore life, and I'm just like, then I'll just see like and I get inspired by the most random things.
Yeah.
I'll be walking down the street and it'll just be like a lady like in a stroller with her kids against whatever, and I'm just like, oh wow, that's so amazing.
Right.
And I'm just like, how can I recreate that? You know, and then and then I start having these conversations like, how can I like, you know?
Then you're back in the lab again.
And then it's like, all right, cool, you know, or like inspiration literally comes from like random different places for me, or I just figure out like how can I like merge X, Y, and Z. But if you don't take a break, then you're just kind of constantly like just. And if you don't take a break, then you're not really like you're just kind of like doing the same kind of process, and you're not really exploring like yourself creatively, you know.
Yeah.
And like watching movies or like just having like conversations with people, just thinking, just doing different things help me to like constantly try to like do new things creatively.
Got you. So lastly, for anybody that's watching this, young entrepreneur, old entrepreneur, somebody who's just kind of stuck where they're at, what do you say to encourage that person?
I would say like, I mean, the internet is a real like, it's a powerful tool, but when you really focus on people's success on the internet, it could really be a crippling factor, you know, because because then you know, but the thing about it is, it's like, you know, I've been doing this for like 10 years plus, and like, you know, you develop relationships with context, so it's like you can't really compare yourself to certain, I mean, you know, you can inspire for certain things, but it's like when you compare yourself too much, it becomes, you end up not doing anything, you know. So it's good to, you know, to use the internet, but you know, I see it as a tool just to like show my work to the world. But I think that like people should really like, you know, you have to know the backstory of things, because you know, you can't just see the internet and compare yourself.
Exactly, and that's why it's important like to have these conversations, because a lot of times like people only look through that lens, and sometimes people's days are dictated by what they see on social media. You wake up feeling good, then you look at so-and-so and they're in some magazine ad, and you like, damn, like how did they get there? Like, what am I doing wrong? So yeah, it's important, man, to have these conversations, man. I appreciate you taking the time out to sit down. Last thing, when we finish, I need you to show me how to tilt my hat the right way, because it's so smooth, you know what I mean? Well, man, I appreciate your time, man. Thanks again, brother, man. Thank you.